Welcome to NARAL's The Morning After. Each Thursday, our podcast brings you the latest on reproductive health care, progressive politics, and the fight to keep abortion safe and legal. NARAL's The Morning After is a production of NARAL ProChoice Ohio. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ProChoice OH. Enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Jaime.
Hi, I'm Randi.
Hi, I'm Gabe. So Mike DeWine has got $45,000 worth of egg on his face. He is going to have to pay Planned Parenthood's lawyers to reimburse them for the legal battle that he lost after he made these statements back in December about what he thought Planned Parenthood was doing with with fetal tissue.
Yeah.
He was totally wrong in his accusations.
Although it's a settlement, so it's not actually, neither party is actually claiming anything wrong, like legal, like for the lawyers, let's say it out loud on a microphone.
Right.
It's a settlement, but there's only money going from one party to another party. So you can infer whatever you want from that.
Yeah. He's not admitting he's wrong, but he is paying $45,000.
Yes.
And by he, we mean we.
Yes.
As taxpayers.
I think I was talking to our executive director today, and we were talking about how it should be a payroll deduction out of his salary.
It really should be. This was a campaign that he picked up trying to capitalize on all of the media cycles about Planned Parenthood last summer. This was something that he totally volunteered for, made some really if we can't legally call them false fibs, whatever word you want to use. It's
wild accusations.
Yes.
Any word other than just calling them lies. So he got caught in his fibs because he was on an agenda against Planned Parenthood.
Yeah. And really, I mean, what this all really was about was his run for being governor. Right. I mean, this really had nothing to do with fetal tissue or anything else. It was positioning him on the right side of this stuff. So when he starts running for governor, which he, I guess, did through a weird conversation last week. Well, I think while we were doing the podcast. So yeah, it's all a mask and it's ridiculous. And he went up there and accused them of these wild things when the Department of Health, which is required to inspect the places for these purposes every single year, had never cited anyone for disposing of tissue incorrectly. But he got up there and said, well, they're totally disposing of tissue incorrectly. Maybe you should chat with the folks that are in charge of enforcing that before you just haul off and tell crazy stories.
Cooking.
Yeah, and WBNS 10 TV here in town, they looked into it and realized that not only were the statements that DeWine was saying not true, he really had no clue what was going on. And this week's That What She Said goes to Planned Parenthood's lawyer, Jennifer Branch. She's an attorney in Cincinnati. She said, it's always a benefit to understand what the law is before you were told you were not in compliance.
Yeah.
Which is a great quote. And I just want to add on to the end, Mike DeWine. You're not in compliance with the law, Mr. Attorney General.
Yeah.
It's just completely ridiculous.
And it just goes to the whole thing around the videos. They just kept pushing the story. The videos were false in the first place, didn't show what they were going to do. The only person that's been indicted is the person who's made the videos. And then, to take it to the next degree, because the story was starting to die down and the antis didn't want that to happen, High Right to Life went to the Attorney General and push the story out. I mean, it was completely and totally coordinated by them. Although he said, there was no way that they had anything to do with the investigation, because that's actually illegal activity. Right. They had to have known ahead of time, because you can't put together a press release and web graphics and everything else in the 5 minutes that spanned between when Mike DeWine spoke the words out loud and when all that shit went out from a High Right to Life.
Right.
I mean, it's totally a coordinated campaign based on these false videos and everything else to keep continuing this narrative against Planned Parenthood and abortion providers. And they came back to bite Mike DeWine in the ass yesterday. So.
Right. And just that we put the story up on our Facebook page. A lot of people commented frustrated that it wasn't DeWine paying. You know, they feel that he should be. Just like you said, the payroll deductions, great idea. But they're also complaining that this is going to lawyers, and I'm one of those people that I'm like, oh, lawyers. They're not my favorite group of people. Jennifer Branch is an amazing attorney.
Yes.
And she is one of the few people that's actively working to keep abortion access available in the state of Ohio, to keep the procedure safe and legal.
Yeah.
This is a really great lawyer.
Yeah. Well, it's not just her too. It's her, and there's the Planned Parenthood Federation of America has some lawyers too. Like there's a whole legal team as well. But yeah, I mean, Jennifer Branch is a partner in Gerhartstein and Branch. You may know the Gerhartstein name because he's actually the one who argued the Oberfeld case on the Supreme Court. So, I mean, this really is a law firm based out of Cincinnati that's standing up every single day for civil rights in Ohio. You know, they're Al Gerhartstein and Jennifer are the reason why gay people can get married in the United States today.
Right.
And Jennifer is the reason why our clinics are staying open.
Yeah. And Al Gerhartstein testified against the heartbeat bill. Like when it was a brand new piece of legislation and everyone was kind of terrified of what is this thing going to be, he stepped up and put his name on it saying, no, this is completely unconstitutional. This is a horrible idea. The state should not be signing up for this because ironically, it's going to cost them a lot of money in legal bills.
Yes.
Well, and that's the thing. If you're pissed off that your taxpayer dollars are going to Planned Parenthood's lawyers, it's not that you need to be pissed off at the Planned Parenthood lawyers. It's that you need to be pissed off at the legislators and the elected officials who are doing this ridiculous shit every single day. I mean, in North Dakota, with their heartbeat bill, actually, the state of North Dakota had to pay $200,000 to Red River Women's Health.
Yes.
That's what, like, I know the clinic, it's in my brain. For their legal fees on fighting their version of the heartbeat bill. This is not a problem of the lawyers. It's a problem of the legislators who are passing these bills that they know are going to cost the money to the taxpayers of their state. And these, by the way, are all Republican Tea Partiers who don't want taxes to be collected in the first place.
Exactly.
Right.
And then they are wasting taxpayer dollars on these kinds of things.
Right.
So if you don't like that money going, elect other people who won't cost you that money.
Yes. So that is one of several court cases that's pending. Well, this one's no longer pending, so we can cross one off the list. There's 4 others. So we thought for today's show, we just sort of run down to make sure that everybody's sort of refreshed on what's happening. The next one is also about Planned Parenthood, but it's the defunding battle.
Yeah, so that one also had a headline yesterday because 2 weeks ago, on the day that it was supposed to go into effect, May 23rd, Planned Parenthood got a very short temporary restraining order that went through June 6th to block the enforcement of the law. And so yesterday they got a longer temporary restraining order. So that temporary restraining order has been extended through August 5th. And
so
that
gives us 2 months now.
Yes. And there's a court hearing on August 2nd on the case. So there's a bunch of briefs and everything that have to go back and forth through this process, and then a hearing on the 2nd. And my guess is that since the judge set that August 5th date as, the date that the TRO was going to be over, that he's expecting to rule fairly quickly on that case. So we should have some sort of ruling at that first level in early August.
And the state's already sort of grumbled about appealing this.
Oh, yeah.
So even though this restraining order just delays a decision at this level of the court, the state has said, and by the state, it's basically Kasich's staff.
It's Mike DeWine. It's actually the Attorney General's office.
Okay. I know Kasich's office was like, well, we're going to continue to do this. So yeah, I mean, they're all grumbling.
Yeah.
Because they've got this great track record of court cases. There was a very nice quote from Iris Harvey in the Plain Dealer. She said, without the action by the court today, some of Ohio's most vulnerable citizens would be left without healthcare options, especially for families in underserved areas. Planned Parenthood is the only place to turn. Nice quote.
And so hopefully we'll get a good, but yeah, again, all these things are, in various steps of the stages. So, when we get a ruling from this judge in August, it's just the first, it's the first level of federal court. and then you go up to the next level, and then I think there's 2 levels between that, and then actually heading all the way to the Supreme Court. So, there's, if we win one level, of course, they're going to appeal that and push it to the next level. So, I mean, this could be going on for years.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just like, this is so, they're so fucking ridiculous. Like, I just, nothing. And he's talking about, I'm not for funding Planned Parenthood. Like, okay, so you're not for Black people in Cleveland, Cincinnati being able to get HIV screenings. You're not for them being able to get mammograms. You're not for them being able to get cervical. You're not for you're very obvious. You're not for poor people. You're not for Black people. You're not for women. You're not for LGBT people. That's what you want people to know. Like, we get it. You don't have to keep doing all of this stuff. Like, we get you Republicans. You are not for any of us, but they seem to just want to keep doing things to let people know, like, in case there's any shadow of a doubt, we want you to know we are not for any of you people. And that's my, Yeah,
it totally is. And so, hopefully we'll get a good ruling, and we'll see how far they'll take this. I mean, also that $45,000 isn't all the money that the AG's office has already spent defending these things.
Right.
Yeah.
Every ODH hearing, even on these things, there's an attorney from the Attorney General's office representing the state. So, that money is the money that went to the Planned Parenthood legal team, but all the other money that's being spent in the Attorney General's office on the other end of this too. So,
right.
So that's the other one we have an update on this week. And then there are 3 other ones that have been pending for various amounts of time. The one we've talked about a lot before is the Toledo Capital Care case, where they're fighting the state's closure order because they can't get a transfer agreement with an Ohio hospital. So they have one with the University of Michigan. And they're claiming, the state's claiming that is not close enough to follow the law.
Which there is an available private local hospital that could solve this if ProMedica would sign a transfer agreement that would cost them nothing. That would sign them up for nothing.
Yes, I know, right?
So simple. They could just put an end to this by signing one piece of paper, filing it, and being done.
But they want to stay neutral, in air quotes, on the subject by refusing.
Less publicity if they would have just signed it and
let it go.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're still running our campaign up there to put pressure on ProMedica while we wait for the court case. They had a hearing last November, right after Thanksgiving, and we thought we'd hear something in early spring, but we still haven't. I mean, there's no timetable for judges to rule in these things. So that's actually in the Lucas County Circuit Court up there. So this was actually a state court filed case, not a federal court filed case. So this one, if it's at the County Court of Appeals at this point, and then after that would head into the state Supreme Court circuit. So this is a case that would never hit our U.S. Supreme Court in its current form. The Ohio Supreme Court, which is kind of scary, is its final resting place. And then the other one that was more recently filed is a court case with Planned Parenthood Southwest Ohio, so the Cincinnati, Dayton area, and Women's Med Center of Dayton, filed in federal court challenging the constitutionality of the transfer agreement variance application process and those kinds of things. That was recently filed, so is still kind of in its initial stages, hasn't had a hearing yet.
So this is Dayton and Cincinnati's only remaining abortion providers working together with one legal team, which is Branch and Gerhard's.
Actually, it's 2. It's a Planned Parenthood Federation of America and Gerhard's Sign and Branch. But yes.
So it's our legal rock stars.
Yes.
And they are, even though these are 2 totally separate organizations working together to make sure that they can protect abortion care across all of Southwest Ohio.
Exactly. We would be in the same situation as Oklahoma if they closed.
Right.
Yeah, Cincinnati would be the largest metropolitan area in the United States without an abortion provider if they lost their last provider.
Right.
So because that metropolitan area really extends quite a bit into Kentucky and Indiana. So that is also Jennifer Branch. Actually, Toledo, we failed to mention, is Jennifer Branch as well. Actually, the only case that isn't directly a Jennifer Branch case is the longest running case of this list, preterm v. Kasich, which is one of my favorite legal titles ever. Anytime it's versus Kasich, it's all fun. Is a case filed by preterm. I think the ACLU is actually involved in this one, where preterm challenged the 2011 budget. So that was the first time Kasich really fucked with the budget and added all the anti-choice provisions into it at the last minute. This was when we got those heartbeat bill provisions where they had to do the ultrasound looking for the heartbeat, and also the transfer agreement variant stuff was first codified into law and all those things. This is a state court case because the state constitution says that a legislative bill can only contain a single subject, and the single subject of the budget is to lay out the finances and spending for the state for the next 2 years. You know, a provision to force a woman to have an medically unnecessary ultrasound is not at all related to how the state spends money for the next 2 years, and therefore violates the single subject rule.
And really, every single state budget violates this principle. I mean, they use the term Christmas tree bill because everybody hangs an ornament on it. You know, that the state legislature for Ohio really does, you know, two things. One is the budget, and the second is everything else that they do. They're about equal, you know. So that one piece of legislation every other year contains, you know, an enormous amount of different restrictions, you know, ideas that they either don't want to take the time to pass on their own or couldn't if it was standalone legislation, or they just want to sneak it through so that nobody really has space in their newspaper to report on it. And that's what they've been doing with the budget. Yeah.
So that's what that case is about. It's actually because it's been pending the longest, but it's still in that very initial stage because the state challenged preterm standing in the case by trying to say that they don't have the standing to bring the legal case. I'm not quite sure how the abortion clinic that's being forced to do all the things, buy the things in the budget, doesn't have standing, but I'll leave that to the lawyers. So, you know, it's the one that's been running the longest, but it's probably still at about the same place as the one we just talked about with Planned Parenthood Southwest Ohio and Women's Med Center. It's still in that very initial stage. So that could, you know, go on forever and ever and ever and ever. And all these cases could. I mean, the Toledo case has been going on since 2013. So, you know, these are all very long processes.
Right.
But it's what we have to do because we have a gerrymandered state legislature that passes unconstitutional bills that restrict access to abortion. So we'll stop going to the courts when they stop passing bad legislation.
Right. There was another statement by Jennifer Branch, and I don't have the quote right in front of me, but she was basically saying that, you know, it's good to have at least one of these cases close out because nobody wants to have to keep watching, you know, where the court proceedings are at to figure out whether or not you can go to your doctor.
Yeah.
Well, and that is really the most confusing part. And it's what, you know, Randi, you probably hit out in the community a lot more is like people coming up and saying, can I still get it? Is it still legal?
A woman came up to me last year, around this time last year, because I was at the Hot Times Festival. So actually it was last September. And she was an Asian American woman and just started telling me about her friend who had a miscarriage and was just scared to go to the hospital because she didn't really know what the laws were. And she asked me, she was like, can you still get an abortion here? I was like, yes, you can. I was like, I know we have a lot of restrictions. It's confusing, but I mean, legally you can, but we see just like you had a situation that's still ongoing, like legally, you can. Actually, realistically getting one, like for some people, it's not so easy.
For sure. And all these cases pending and things changing, you know, like, I mean, the first defunding temporary restraining order came the day that the funding was going to be redistributed. There's the word. Don't say big words on the podcast. To other places. So, you know, on Friday, Planned Parenthood had to lay everybody off because they didn't know if they were going to have the money on Monday and, you know, call everybody back in when they got the TRO on Monday. So, you know, these things screw with women's access. They screw with people's jobs.
Yes. Causing people who have nothing to do. And even if they did, it's an illegal procedure. But at the same time, like most of these workers have nothing to do with abortion. And now you're causing people to lose their jobs. People who are then either going to have to go on unemployment or welfare, maybe get food stamps. Like, Yeah. You guys have no logic whatsoever. I just can't. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It makes zero sense.
So that's the courts in Ohio, at least.
Okay.
So we'll keep an eye on all those things and let people know as we get updates.
Yep. If you listen to all that and you're not quite keeping them straight, we'll put information about each one in the show notes. So, be sure to check that out. You can always find more information on our blog, ProChoiceOhio.com. Right? Right.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So that's here in the state of Ohio. Also in the state of Ohio, but originating from our national office, NARAL Pro-Choice America has announced a new ad campaign. They're targeting several members of the U.S. Senate, all Republicans, that have been obstructing the nominating process for the new U.S. Supreme Court Justice, or the guy who we want to be the... We don't even want him to be it. We just need a hearing.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not advocating to elect
Yeah.
him. We haven't heard anything from him. Hold a hearing.
Yes.
Yes.
Hold a vote. So
Just do your job.
The National NARAL office has put out these ads in key states to make sure that the senators for those states really get the message. So this is a quote from Sasha Bruce. She's the Senior Vice President for Campaigns and Strategy at NARAL Pro-Choice America. She said that NARAL is stepping up to ensure Senator Portman does the job the people of Ohio elected him to do. Senate Republicans have not only refused to do their jobs for more than 2 months, but now we learn that their cynical obstructionism is really about limiting access to abortion all along. In the ad, the story told by NARAL member and Ohioan Rachel Katzenjar, go Rachel, makes clear that Senator Portman simply doesn't share the priorities of the hardworking families he was elected to represent. 7 in 10 Americans support legal access to abortion. Senators like Rob Portman, who are obstructing the nomination process in order to limit access to abortion, couldn't be more out of touch. The message from Ohio voters to Senator Portman is clear. Do your job and fill the vacancy of our nation's highest court.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to play the ad for you now so you can listen to it. Here it goes.
Ohioans work hard. We stick to it and get the job done. And we expect the elected officials who work for us to do the same. But Senator Rob Portman refuses to do his job and fill the vacancy on the U.S. Supreme Court. And now we learn that the Republican plan to block the Supreme Court nominee was really about something else, denying safe and legal access to abortion.
I'm Rachel Carson Jar. As a small business owner, I do my job every day. But Senate Republicans are not doing their jobs because of their position on abortion. If Senator Portman doesn't support holding Senate hearings and a vote, he'll be stopping the highest court in the land from protecting our rights when it matters most.
Call Senator Portman at 614-469-6774 and tell him he shouldn't put his political beliefs before what's best for the country. It's time for hearings and a vote on the Supreme Court nominee. And it's time for him to do his job. Paid for by NARAL Pro-Choice America.
I don't know. I just feel like overall, it is very frustrating that they don't want to, even have a hearing or, talk to him. And like you said, it's not like Merrick Garland is like our number one top pick to be on the Supreme Court, but
Right.
yeah, it's just
He could be the least we want.
Yeah.
We don't know yet.
Yeah.
For me, it's just not only is it very annoying to me, it's like it's very, disrespectful, I feel like, to the president. And I feel like not only do I feel that way, a lot of other people feel that way, that they're very disrespectful to this president the way they haven't been to other presidents. And it's very we can very much see that. But, again, they don't care because, they're not trying to get my vote anyway. So,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
I think it goes back to our first conversation on wasting taxpayer dollars. I pay his salary. My taxes pay his salary, and he's sitting around and not doing his job.
Exactly.
I love Randi, but if you just stopped showing up for work every day, we would fire you.
I still can't get the check.
No, it doesn't work that way. Shit has to get done. And so, the fact and actually it was funny. I was in DC a couple weeks ago now, meeting with people talking about the the Act for Women, and we didn't have an appointment with Portman's office, but we, for the hell of it, stopped by. And number one, the look on his poor aide's face because it was with Mallory McMaster, one of our board members, but also a staff member at preterm, and where she introduced herself as working for an abortion clinic, and the look on his face, like we left and we're like, I think he might need to change his pants. But he was really excited that we stopped by and like pushed him on that. And it was like his response, the staffer's response was, well, we just feel like it's the right thing to do. And like, no, it's not the right thing to do to sit around and not do your job.
Right.
No.
It's never the right thing to sit around and not do what people like you to do. And excuse me, there's an election in November.
Exactly.
And you're on it. So you might want to do your job.
And again, it's not like we are telling them, you need to vote. You need to vote him in. You need to go and vote yes. Like, no one is saying that at all. Just saying, like, freaking go through the motions. We already know you're probably not going to vote him in anyway. But I mean, geez, at least like go through the freaking motions and like do what you're supposed to be doing. Like, I don't understand why that part is so difficult if you're not going to vote for him anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, just please appease us by just going through the motions. Could
At
you
least
not
do your job? Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
And speaking of Portman and the election, the Dispatch is reporting that both Portman and Kasich are trying to figure out if and how they will fit into the Republican National Convention, which I think is like the most hilarious story ever. They were quoting Portman. And he said that his time would be better spent holding a mini convention of his own in Cleveland, which he plans to do with events for veterans, the homeless, and volunteers. He says, I've spoken at every convention since 1996. Nobody listens. Nobody covers it.
And ain't nobody going to cover you if you have a mini convention. Like, what are you talking about?
Dude, they're all going to be covering Donald Trump.
Yes.
Right.
Like, that's more of a, like, well, they haven't covered me before, and crap, this time they would. There would actually be footage of me this time. And no, that can't happen.
No, he's
this is the weakest quote I've ever heard from a politician running for office.
Yeah.
Nobody listens to me.
Yeah. Please clap.
Please, yes, please clap for me. Jeb is never gonna live that down.
No.
But no, but again, he's still endorsing him. He's
which was a pretty weak endorsement too.
True. A lot of his have been. I mean, he's not the only person who said, I'm gonna endorse him, but like I'm not gonna be out here like stomping for him and like all this stuff. So, or I guess other people have said I'm gonna support him, but I'm not gonna endorse him, which I don't even know what that means. I mean, isn't that the same thing? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
but it doesn't matter. He doesn't. I don't think Trump cares. He's still gonna do. And I imagine like the RNC with Trump, because he wants it to be like this big Hollywood production. And in my mind, I just imagine like the end of a Bollywood movie and Trump coming in, and it's like now we're going to crown him, and like which would actually be hilarious, I think. But I'm also, I know we're going to be there. I'm also very I'm excited, but I'm like very nervous for what's going to happen there, just because I know it's going to be like
in Cleveland.
Yeah. It's going to be very we're going to be like very emotional on both sides, very passionate on both sides. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, Kasich and Portman, they cannot just actually skip when the national party comes to your state. And I mean, this is a U.S. senator and a governor trying to figure out if they're even going to bother being at the national convention in their own state. Just because they're terrified of sharing the stage with Donald Trump. It'll
be like the debate where they were like, oh, are you going to call when they were forgetting to come out and Ben Carson wouldn't come out, and then him and Donald Trump are both standing there and they have to call them again. And then John Kasich is last. They're like, are you going to call John Kasich? And they're like, oh, yeah. And John Kasich, like, that's how it would be. Like, nobody's going to miss him.
Well, I mean, we know that John Kasich can ignore people in the room with him because of that Cleveland Plain Dealer editorial board meeting with Ed Fitzgerald, where he just sat there at the table and like wouldn't even acknowledge that the other human being was in the room. So all he needs to do is just kind of conjure those things back up and pretend Trump doesn't exist for a minute.
Right. But I mean, the past couple Republican national conventions have not been really positive media events.
No.
You had Clint Eastwood talking to an empty stool. You had Chris Christie delivering a really fiery speech that pretty much acknowledged that Mitt Romney was not going to win. And then my most favorite moment was John McCain speaking, and projected on the screen behind him was what's the Army hospital, the big one?
Oh yeah, I can't remember.
But it wasn't the actual Army hospital.
Walter Reed.
Yes, it was not Walter Reed Medical Center, where all the veterans go when they're injured. It was like Walter Reed Middle School. Like somebody Googled Walter Reed and projected a giant picture during his Thursday night primetime convention speech. And it's just some junior high.
Nobody thought to make sure
they
those
didn't
things
know.
were right.
Yeah, they didn't know what the real Walter Reed Medical Center looked like, where all the veterans go. So maybe Portman should skip the RNC.
But Donald Trump wants to move the final thing to the big, huge stadium and everything that last night because he thinks he can.
To Brown Stadium?
I think actually the baseball stadium was the picture they were kept showing.
Okay. Not to trash on Cleveland sports, but there aren't too many winners in those stadiums.
Hey, you hush your mouth. Cleveland's going to beat Golden State. We're going to win that shit. And the Cleveland thing is going to be broken.
Yes, I think the Cavs have better chance than Donald Trump.
I'm super excited about it. I've been watching y'all very intently.
Yeah, no, I think the Cavs have got this.
Yeah.
So
slightly off topic.
Not to digress.
Can't totally trash on all the sports right now.
I'm just saying that if they're going to go to the Brown Stadium, that's a different conversation altogether.
It is. Maybe he should stay in the queue because that's the only team that seems to win.
Right. All right. So we'll see the RNC.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on, back to the court case conversation. It is the month of June, which is prime Supreme Court decision season. Any Monday this month, we could be seeing the Whole Woman's Health versus Hellerstedt decision. This is the case that Randi and I did the big bus ride with 50 of our fellow Ohioans to go cheer on outside the U.S. Supreme Court. Arguments in this case which really focus on Texas's abortion restrictions.
Yeah.
We could be seeing an announcement about this at any time.
Yep.
So
it's really like something that is I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I hope it's not like a 4-4 decision.
Right.
Because then it would just be like a hot mess everywhere. Because the other lower courts have had different decisions. But I think the Texas one did not uphold it. So then that means that the Texas law
would go into effect.
Would go into effect. And already.
But just in Texas.
Yeah, but just
in Texas.
Well, just in the circuit that they're covered. So actually, it's Texas, and so it would cover that whole circuit. So I think I can't remember what the states are. We'll put it in the show notes.
But those states wouldn't adopt the Texas state law. It just meant that the ruling would be applicable.
Yeah, so their legislators could come back and pass those kinds of same laws in those states, which is a big deal because what happens, when Texas restricts it is that Texas women are going elsewhere. So you get those neighboring states.
If they can.
If they can. You get those neighboring states to start enacting the same things, and then you get into these situations where you've got to go 4 states away to get access.
Right. Exactly. I was going to say, it's really like close to my heart, just, following it and listening. And like saying, people going to other places if they can. And, a lot of women there, like hearing the phone calls, women saying like, oh, I can't make it there. Well, this is what I have in my kitchen, under my kitchen sink. Tell me what I can do. Like we shouldn't have to hear people say stuff like that in America. So I hope that it gets worked out. Again, we don't know what's going to happen. Lots of women there have been trying to reported trying to self-induce abortion. So that shouldn't be happening.
That's really horrific.
It is.
At first, I thought you were saying this is what I have in my kitchen cupboard, like as a statement of how little money they have. But you're actually talking like these are the chemicals I have.
What can I do? Yeah.
Jesus.
Well, I mean,
Exactly.
we know for a fact that, so, you know, in the Rio Grande Valley, that section of Texas is actually south of a lot of Mexico, because it is so easy to get into Mexico and get abortion drugs from flea markets in Mexico, because, you know, that's where you should head for your medical care.
Yeah.
You know, two of those clinics that actually were forced to stop providing abortions actually stayed open for several months doing miscarriage management, because these women went across into Mexico and got these quote unquote abortion drugs, and it didn't cause a complete miscarriage, or it didn't cause a complete abortion, and they were hemorrhaging, or they had retained, you know, placentas and all these things that caused infections and problems. And so, you know, these clinics were staying open to treat the complications that were happening for these women going across border to get access to these illegal medications. So yeah, I mean, it really, you know, we're getting to a point where, you know, all the talk about it and everything else, you know, is getting real.
Exactly. It's not theoretical anymore to say that, you know, if you make abortion illegal, people are just going to go and try to do it themselves, get back alley. Like, it's not theoretical. That's actually happening. Like, so to say that, you know, that's not going to happen. And it's like, so you see the proof here. Making it illegal does not stop it. You're just, you know, you're killing women right now from having to, they're trying to get these abortions or trying to cause a miscarriage, and it's not working. Like, but again, we see that they don't care. They
say that they're trying to protect women's health by passing these laws, and what they're doing is the exact opposite.
Yes.
Right.
And it's a lot of women legislators doing this, not to say that, you know, just not, we're putting it on the men, you know, although it is a lot of men, it's a lot of women Republican legislators that are doing that as well, who, for whatever reason, because I guess they can't see themselves having to deal with the situation, that, you know, they have the money, the power to get out of it, whatever happens to them. I remember Shannon Jones talking about it, saying, well, when I have a problem, I just go to my primary care provider.
That's nice.
Think about the privilege to say that you're cutting healthcare for all of these poor women, and your answer is, well, they should just go to their primary care. They don't have one. Like, this is the point. Like, but again, they do not understand. They don't get it.
Right. Yeah. There are Christina Higgins and Peggy Lehners in Texas, and Louisiana, and everywhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah. Amy Hagstrom Miller is the I don't know what her title is. Owner?
Director.
She's the head of Whole Women's Health in Texas. She's really awesome. She put a statement on her Facebook page. She said the waiting is excruciating. So waiting for this Supreme Court case. She said the contingency planning for multiple outcomes is an indescribable puzzle. It puts Tetris to shame. The bad outcome scenarios often haunt me and my frontline clinic teams for days after we meet and run them out and make action item lists. So please hold us and lift us up, y'all.
Yeah.
So thinking of Amy.
Well, if you're listening to the show immediately when we post it, you can actually see Amy Hagstrom Miller and her staff and how they dealt with this case through a lot of it at preterm tonight at Thursday, June 2nd at 6 o'clock at preterm. They're going to actually screen Trapped. It's a preterm NARAL and Planned Parenthood event up there. And you really, in that documentary, you really see, because they were actually at one of the clinics when they got one of their temporary stays, and they had spent all day trying to reschedule all their patients because they thought they'd have to close the next day. And then they got the stay and they could be open the next day, and the relief that just kind of floods over them when being able to actually serve their patients the next day. So I can only imagine, you know, we talk through the 5 different scenarios of how this is going to play out and how it might affect Ohio or may not, and those kinds of things. And we think about it kind of on this ethereal level. You know, she's in her clinics every single day trying to figure out, okay, so if scenario 1 happens, this is what we're going to have to do. If scenario 2 happens, this is what we're going to have to do. And she's going to have to figure that out in, you know, a very short time frame to figure out what the hell they're going to do.
Yeah.
So
any Monday in June.
Yes, any Monday in June. Stay tuned. SCOTUS blog is probably the best way. Well, you know, we'll of course post stuff on all our social media and those kinds of things as well.
Right.
Maybe we'll get happy news like we got happy news last June.
Yes.
We'll
Fingers
see.
crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yes.
Fingers and toes crossed. Everything crossed.
So now we're going to let's get it on. So we are here now in June. It's officially festival season. We're going to be at the Dayton Pride Festival this Saturday, June 4th. It's from noon to 4, the Courthouse Square. So you can come find us. We'll have a booth there. Me and our new summer interns. I'll be there talking to people. Then again, the third Saturday, which is the 17th and 18th, that's going to be Columbus Pride, and we'll be out there Friday night and all day Saturday. And then the last weekend in June, that Saturday the 25th, Cincinnati Pride. It's really beautiful. It's right on the river. It was a little windy last time, but it's really nice. And there was a ton of people there at that one. It was really fun. So we'll be there. Again, I think it's from about either 10 or 11 to 8 that night. And then that weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is ComFest here in Columbus. And you can volunteer at ProChoiceOhio.org.
Yes. And Annie has a bunch of stuff going on in Cleveland too. So if you're in Cleveland and Toledo, actually. So if you're in either of those places, volunteer at ProChoiceOhio.org.
Yes,
and
she has lots of stuff for you to do.
Okay. As always, check the show notes for information on those, and we'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.